Alright, so let's wait a little longer for the rest of our viewers to slowly stream in for our noontime session for today. Right, so let's wait a little longer as the rest of our viewers slowly stream in for this afternoon session, this noontime session, This noontime session as we're looking at the Ai Tong School's end of year examination on P5 in 2023. Okay, so just to start off as a brief recap or a brief preview of what we'll be taking a look at later on, we'll be going through the grammar and vocab MCQ sections first before moving onward to the grammar close and wrapping things up with the editing passage if time permits. So with that said, let's get started before it's too long. Let's get started a little longer as we wait for the others to slowly stream in. I guess today it's a pretty slow day as we wait for our other viewers to join in. Okay. For those who have just made it in, I hope you are having a pleasant Tuesday for now. Okay, right, so very good afternoon for everyone who is joining in. I think we're a little longer. I think everyone is still getting their writing materials ready, right? At the same time, for those who are just joining in, if you haven't already done so, I think it would be great if you can set aside writing materials and writing paper for today. We go through some of the questions, alright? Along the way, as you go through your question and take down some notes, feel free to take down these annotations in your own working book or in your own notes as well, so they help you to understand and to internalize these concepts moving forward beyond just this live stream session. So let's get right, so those who are just joining in for today, right? Okay, so let's get started for today. We start off the grammar MCQ. Okay. Starting off with question 1. Much to Mrs. Tan's disappointment, her students had performed blank her expectations in the test. So we're looking at to perform blank her expectations in the test over here. To her disappointment tells us that expectations were not met, right? So blank her expectation tells us to stick with option 4, below her expectations. To be below expectations. Question 2 is slightly trickier. They will come to our party blank day, asked Sarah. Okay, so this can be a pretty tricky question we've not come across it before. It's known as a tag question. What is a tag question over here? A tag question consists of two parts. You have your main statement at the start, followed by a question tag at the end of it. Your question tag over here consists of two elements. You have a verb and you have a subject. Where do you find the verb? Where do you find the subject? You need to find it from the main statement. Firstly, you have they. They is the subject in question over here. So they. How about the verb? The verb over here needs to take reference on will come. Firstly, it still needs to remain in the future tense. So same tense, will come. The second rule you need to follow, it needs to be of the opposing action. What do I mean by opposing action over here? You take a look at your main statement. Main statement, right? You have will come. So the opposite of will come would thus be will not come. Any questions why it's will not and not will? The opposite of it, yeah? And since we're looking at the opposite, we'll be looking at will not come. The construction of will not is won't, option 2. Okay. Won't they? Okay, so this can be pretty tricky. Let me put an asterisk beside it. This is a pretty common question that shows up in the past few years, and it's pretty tricky for students to encounter, right? So be careful with questions like these. Question 3. The class of students blank patiently right now for their teacher to arrive. Okay. Class of students blank patiently right now. Firstly, patiently right now tells us that this act of waiting is still in progress, right? They have not finished ending. They have not finished waiting. They have not completed waiting. So it should be in the continuous tense. It should be in the continuous tense. So we can eliminate options 1 and options 2. We have is waiting and are waiting. When do we use is? When we use are, it depends on the subject, whether it is a singular or a plural subject. In this case here, we need to look at the subject. We have students. However, students are grouped under a class, right? Class of students. So this is what is known as a collective noun, referring to a group. Since you're using the collective noun of class as your reference subject, it should be singular. Hence, the singular subject over here would be option 3. The class is waiting patiently for their teacher to arrive. Okay. Any questions? Right, if you've got yourself a right answer, you can give yourself a pat on the back. Along the way, if you have any questions or you think you have the right answer also, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then if you get it right, you can get a ding. Okay, right, but only if you get it right. Only if you get it right. Question 4. Henry as well as Martin blank at the pub every Sunday. Henry as well as Martin every Sunday. Every Sunday is something that takes place in the present, right? So this should be the present tense. It's a regular activity happening. It's in the present tense. How about the subject? Henry as well as Martin is what is known as a compound subject. A subject made up of multiple smaller subjects. How do you go about answering questions with compound subjects over here? Well, we look at as well as the connecting conjunction here, right? When you have as well as, whatever that comes after this, you can eliminate it from consideration. Okay, so whatever comes after here, you can ignore it. Just focus on what comes before it, which in this case is Henry. Henry is just one person. It is a singular. Okay. So looking for a singular verb in the present tense, that leaves us with option 2, cycles. Henry as well as Martin cycles at the pub every Sunday. Finally, question 5. How blank luggage will you be bringing for our holiday? Mr. Tan asked his wife. So a neat trick that can help you with questions like these when you have a dialogue question, you can ignore whatever goes on outside of the dialogue phrase over here. Just focus on the statement within the dialogue phrase. How blank luggage will you be bringing for our holiday? In this case, you are looking for quantifiers. Quantifiers of the subject luggage. Now, luggage is what is known as a collective noun as well. It is used to refer to a general group of items you bring with you when you're traveling. For example, your suitcases, your bags, your backpacks. These are your luggage. One group of items called a luggage. Okay? So a collective noun is used in the singular as well. We've learned it earlier about the class of students. We're applying it here, referring to the luggage. It is singular and it is uncountable. Because you're referring to the general group of items over here, it is uncountable. Luggage is used as an uncountable noun. So among these 4 options, the one that is used for uncountable nouns is option 2 and 3. Options 1 and 4, few and many, are used for countable nouns. Okay. Few and many are used for countable nouns. Little and much are used for uncountable nouns. And since we're looking at uncountable nouns, we are stuck with little and much. So we can safely eliminate options 1 and options 4. In this case here, Mr. Tan is asking his wife for the amount, right? How much? So it should be option 3 as your answer. Oops. Yep. Okay, option 3 as your answer. question 6 onwards. Mary delivered the parcel to Mr. Teo blank since her mother could not. Okay, over here we're looking at a pronoun referring to Mary over here. Let me get out my stationery. So this pronoun in question must refer to Mary. They're trying to answer the question over here. Among these four pronouns, the one that refers to Mary in the third person is option 3, right? The third person point of view with the feminine pronoun of herself. Question 7. We watched our friends blank in the school's concert last week. We watched our friend blank in the school concert last week. So last week tells us that the verb over here, watched, is in the past tense. So should this be in the past tense as well? Okay, if you think this is the past tense, is a common mistake you might make. However, you have to be careful. What you have over here, watch, is what is known as a verb of perception. What is a verb of perception? It sounds pretty scary, right? What kind of word does this mean? Okay, simply put, a verb of perception are verbs that relate to your 5 senses: your sense of sight, your sense of hearing, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, and your sense of touch. In this case here, watching engages your sense of sight, to watch something. And when you have a verb of perception, the one that follows right after it must be in the base form. A verb in the base form. So we watched our friends dance. Is that clear? Even if it is just one friend, a singular friend, it should be in the base form of dance, not dancers. Question 8. Barry, blank cat was ill, went to the vet yesterday. Okay. We have 4 pronouns over here relative or relating to the subject. Which do we use over here? We're looking at Barry, blank cat was ill over here. It should be a possessive pronoun. What is a possessive pronoun? Possessive pronoun is when the pronoun is used to indicate ownership. Okay. So a possessive pronoun should be using over here is option 4. Barry, whose cat was ill, because the cat belongs to Barry. On to question 9. Visiting the dentist once every 6 months, blank, important for good oral health, father said. Visiting a dentist once every 6 months is blank, important for good oral health. Okay, there's an answer coming in from Hui. Whether or not the others agree, let's see. Alright, why do you use is over here? Blank, important for oral health. This is a fact, right? It remains true. Okay. So since it's a factual statement, it remains in the present tense. If you were to say the earth is round, that should also be in the present tense because it's a factual statement. Okay. Here describing the act of visiting the dentist once every 6 months. So that should be option 1 is important for good oral health, says father. Okay, so well done, Hui, for getting the right answer. Finally, question 10. Blank, it rains, blank, it rains heavily. We will proceed with the camping trip. So this is a conditional question. This is what is known as a conditional question. We will proceed with the camping trip over here. This is the stated course of action. This is the rule. We will proceed the camping trip. Blank, it rains heavily. Now, if you've gone camping before, you know that if you are outdoors camping, it is not good to go when it's raining heavily, right? So this is the exception to the rule. So the correct conjunction to introduce an exception to a rule is option 2, unless. So again, once again, well done, Hui, for getting the right answer. Unless is used to introduce an exception to the rule. Proceeding with our vocab section over now. Okay, for vocab section, things that you should take note of, we will have 10 questions similar to grammar MCQ as well, alright? For vocab, we will have questions following the fill in the blank format. For a total of 5 questions. Okay. So about the remaining 5 questions, where do they go? Okay. The remaining 5 marks are attributed to substitution. Substitution, where you'll be tasked to do replacing the word in the sentence with the appropriate option or the appropriate choice. Let's take a look with our first question. Larry ended up blank the blame for the mistake as no one else stepped forward to tell the truth. Okay. To blank the blame. So you should read this in context with the rest of the sentence over here. No one else stepped forward to tell the truth, so he could not pass the blame, right? To pass the blame is to push it off to someone else. That was not possible because no one stepped forward to tell the truth. Keeping the blame isn't really used as an expression. To admit or to shoulder, both of them are quite similar. To admit and to shoulder is to take responsibility for the blame or for the mistake. However, you should be using option 4. To shoulder the blame. To shoulder is to take the responsibility of the blame on behalf of others. To take responsibility on behalf of others. Oops, my bad. Ability on behalf of others. So that's how you use shouldering the blame for your vocab word of choice. Question 12. We cheered wildly without blank when it was announced that our school had won a track and field championship. If your school had won a championship, how would you feel? Ecstatic? Elated? Right, I hope so. So which of these words over here carries the idea of cheering without having to worry about keeping your words? We have restraint, restriction, regulation, and resistance. Okay. All of them seem to have a certain element of restriction, of blocking, right? However, how do they differ in usage and context? Firstly, let's start from the bottom. We have without resistance. What does it mean to resist? To resist is to oppose. To oppose, to challenge. Okay. Not really what we're looking for over here. Without resistance doesn't really fit in the idea of cheering on the team when they had won a track and field championship, right? So option 4 isn't really quite what we're looking for. How about option 3, without regulation? What is a regulation? A regulation is a rule, a law, or a guideline that is legally administered and enforced. For example, according to regulations, you cannot enter a swimming pool if you do not know how to swim. Under the school regulations, you cannot attend school without wearing a school uniform, right? So regulation over here, under the rules and guidelines. Again, does this really fit in with the idea of cheering without regulation? Not quite. Cheering isn't an act that is regulated. It's not really an action that follows along the law, right? There's really a law that dictates whether you can cheer or not at an event. So this isn't really what we're looking for also for option 3. How about option 2? Okay, I think 𝗖𝐬 has an answer in. But let's see whether 𝗖𝐬 is right. 𝗖𝐬 is the answer in. Number 2, restriction. Restriction over here relates to... Okay, let's think about it, restriction, right? When you had during the COVID-19 pandemic, there are restrictions on travel, restrictions on moving around. So what does a restriction mean? Okay, a restriction is a control or a limitation placed upon someone. Usually it's just to refer to a legal limitation. For example, if you're using the tablets issued by the school, there are restrictions on downloading any additional games or apps on the tablet, right? There are restrictions, legal limits, legal controls on downloading games on your school tablet. Okay, so that is an example of a restriction. While there are certain elements of control over here, they are cheering without control. Is it a legal control? Is it something that's written into law? Not quite, right? Yet again, similar to what we saw for regulation, they're not exactly flouting the law by cheering without control. Okay, so restriction isn't really used here. That leaves us just with number 1, restraint. What is restraint? Restraints over here, literally it means like physical restraints like handcuffs, but I can also talk about emotional restraints, right? Emotional suppression of certain emotions. In this case here, you decided not to control your emotions any longer, you let them out. That is to be without restraint. So that would have been option 1 for your answer. So well done, 𝗖𝐬, for getting the right answer. Oops. Okay. 𝗖𝐬 getting option 1 for the correct answer. Any questions about any of the 4 words we just discussed? Okay. All of them are pretty similar in definitions, but its nuance, meaning, and context differ quite substantially. So we have to be careful when we come across questions like these, alright? Don't use them interchangeably. Now question 13. Being highly blank, Oscar is always able to point out the slightest change in his friend's appearance. Okay. So being highly blank over here, looking to talk about someone who notices changes in their environment. Which of these is used to describe that effect of noticing changes in your environment? Maybe for those who have gotten it right, you can try it out again. Go for the second answer right in a row. Or for those who have just joined in or are feeling a bit hesitant to put in your answer, why don't you give it a shot? You never know if you might get it right. If you were to narrow down these options, I think you can eliminate options 2 and options 4. Okay? To be conscious and to be envious isn't really what we're looking for over here. We are stuck with vigilant and observant. Which should be used in this case over here? Vigilant and observant. In this case here, both have the meaning of looking out for things in your surrounding. However, vigilant has the additional element of looking out specifically for danger. Oops. Let me sharpen it. Vigilant is used to notice danger in your surrounding. Okay. However, are you looking out for danger in your friend's appearance? Not exactly, right? So the closer match over here would be observant, being noticing changes in your surrounding that are not necessarily posing a danger or hazard to you. Question 14. Question 14 has 4 phrasal verbs to look at. Natalie blanked her assignment late and received a failing grade as a consequence. Okay, so looking at a verb that contains the idea of submitting or handing in the assignment late. Which of these 4 phrasal verbs carries this idea of submitting your assignment late? In this case here, for the phrasal verbs, to turn in is to submit. To turn up is to attend. For example, you turned up for attendance taking in school. To turn out is a result of. I can't wait to see how this turns out. To turn out as a result. To turn down is to reject. Right? I turned down the offer. Finally, question 15. She gazed blank at the music box on display, which she knew she could not afford. She gazed blank at the music box, which she knew she could not afford. Which of these 4 adverbs over here carries the idea of looking at it with a sense of sentiment, a sense of want? So carrying the idea of a certain sense of want, a certain sense of desire, looking for, longing. Gaze longingly at the music box on display. So longingly talks about sentiment, talks about an innate desire for something. Okay. How about needy? Needy talks about not quite the same context or the same sentence, but rather to needily need something about something that you cannot live without, about the bare necessities. This music box isn't really a necessity that she needs, rather she wants it with a certain sense of longing. Okay, so that will be longingly here. That brings us to the end of our fill in the blank for vocab, but we still have our substitution questions to go through. Let's take a look at the next section. Okay. This talks about a new student in a new school. Okay. Standing in a canteen, Susie spotted her new classmate, Amy. Mrs. Goh, their form teacher, had introduced her to the class that morning. Amy looked lost and seemed hesitant of what to do. Susie gave a little smile of understanding, as she had been in the same situation before, and decided to approach Amy. "Hey, Amy, do you need help?" Susie asked. Amy's face lit up, and she nodded. "If you're wondering what to eat, let me recommend the noodles from the Japanese food stall. Not only is it tasty, it is also economical, at $2 a bowl. In addition, the stall owner dishes out the portions liberally, and the large serving will keep you full till lunchtime." Susie said. Amy grinned and thanked Susie for her help. Okay. So the short passage about introducing a new classmate to the canteen. The first question we are looking at to replace is question 16, hesitant. So which of these four options we see at the bottom of the page over here best replace the word hesitant? Amy looked lost and seemed unsure of what to do, right? To be hesitant, to be unsure of. Which of these four words carries the idea of being unsure? To be unsure of what to do, to be not sure, is to be uncertain. So that will be option 4. She was uncertain of what to do. How about the remaining 3 options? To be insecure is to lack self-esteem. To be unaware is to not know what's going around you. To be impatient is to be lacking patience and tolerance. Susie gave a little smile of understanding. Okay. Understanding over here, to put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? To understand and to see the world from their point of view. Among our options, we have empathy, affection, concern, and pity. Among these 4 options, which carries the idea of putting yourself in someone else's shoes to understand how they see the world? Okay, maybe some of our more active viewers can start the ball rolling in the chat. Which of these 4 answers best fit the option? Okay. Yep, you could look at empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is to share a common understanding with someone else. For example, if someone is going through something difficult, you say, "I can empathize with what you're going through. I understand what you're going through." Question 18. Susie asked. Amy's face lit up. Now her face isn't physically, literally lighting up. However, it talks about the expression on her face lighting up. Okay. We have radiating, gleam, lighten, and brighten. Which 4 of these over here carry the idea of your face lighting up? In this case here, she was lighting up. Okay, to radiate is to give off light, but this isn't really the case we're looking for over here. To gleam, a gleaming surface is one that is shiny. Again, not really about a shiny face. Lighten and brightened. Between these two, you should be using option 4. Amy's face brightened. Amy recommended noodles from a Japanese food store. Not only is it tasty, it is economical at $2 a bowl. Looking at economical is something that you can buy with your money, something that is worth your money. Okay. So between popular, affordable, worthwhile, and discounted, which of these 4 carry the idea of economical? Starting off with popular, something that's popular is something many people want, something many people demand. However, does it necessarily have to be cheap or easy to purchase? Not necessarily, right? Some things can be very expensive as well as popular at the same time. So not really option 1. Option 2, affordable. Something that's affordable is something that most people are able to afford and are willing to buy. Okay, so this definitely fits the criteria. But option 3, worthwhile. Worthwhile, while used mostly for a period of time or an event. Okay. It was worth my while to attend the live stream. So it was worthwhile. It's not really used for money or for monetary transactions, rather it's used for an activity or a time period. And finally, discounted. Discounted means reduced from its original price. That is not the same meaning as being conveyed within the sentence over here. We're not looking at the original price of the rice of the noodle bowl from the Japanese food store. So discounted changes the meaning of the sentence entirely. We cannot use it for the replacement. Thus, we should leave only option 2, affordable. Finally, question 20. Towards the end, we see the store owner dishing out the portions liberally. Okay, to dish it out liberally is to give it out more than necessary. To give more than necessary. Let's look at the 4 options over here. Selfless, charitable, adequate, and generous. Okay. So both selfless and charitable both carry the idea of doing something for good. However, it's not really the good fit for the sentence over here of doing more than necessary. Adequately is just enough as it is, so not a good replacement, leaving us to option for generously. When you're generous, you're giving more than necessary over here. While generous can be used for values, talking about contributions or donations, it can also be used to referring to any degree of amount. There's a generous amount of food given out, more food than is necessary. Finally, we can move on to our grammar close passage. Any questions from what we've covered so far? Okay. Now on to our close passage. This close passage talks about bird paradise. Okay, for the closed passage, you'll be given 15 options to choose from. Each option can be used only once. Okay. Hi Yasmin, welcome. Hope you have a good day at school. Hope you've had lunch, right? Our previous passage just talked about lunch, buying lunch at the canteen over here. So I hope you've had your lunch if you've just returned from school. So now let's take a look at a grammar close passage talking about bird paradise, the construction of the exhibit and how it went about. Okay. For grammar close, you'll be tasked with filling in 10 blanks from the 15 options given to you. Okay. Each of these letters can only be used once, they cannot be repeated. So let's start. Most of bird paradise residents have settled in after their big move to their new home at Mandai Wildlife Reserves. The new bird park opened on 8th May and operates blank 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. So this is a grammar rule for collocation. Collocation rule over here, blank something to something. To tells us that we should be using it as a reference for. From, okay, that will be option H. So for those who have gotten it right, give yourself a pat on the shoulder. From something to something, that is the collocation you'll be using here. There are free shuttle services within the park, blank the convenience of visitors. So we need a preposition over here. Free shuttle services, blank the convenience of visitors. In this case here, the visitors are the ones who will be using the shuttle services. So it's for the convenience of visitors. Alright, hi, welcome. Everyone who is joining in, hi, welcome. Visitors can look forward, blank, team walk through aviaries where they can get up close, blank, personal with the birds. So to look forward, collocation, look forward to is the proper collocation you should be using here, to look forward to something. Okay, to look forward to is a phrasal verb talking about expecting or to be excited for something. Where they can get up close, blank, personal with the birds. So up close, personal, these are two experiences you can expect from visiting bird paradise. Two experiences that are similar in the same list. The conjunction you should use to connect two items in the same list together should be the conjunction of option B, up close and personal with the birds. There are blank play areas for children. So there are, in addition to walk through aviaries, there are blank play areas. There are also play areas for children, including one blank trampolines. So including one that has trampolines inside with trampolines. The larger aviaries are able to house more species so that they can interact with one another in the same area. Some birds are friendly and may land blank visitors. So land, in this case here, the preposition you should use for option 35. When you're landing on something, it's landing on, right? To land on visitors. They're encouraged to exercise caution, blank interacting with the birds. So you need to exercise caution, you need to be careful during the time you interact with the birds. So during the time, you should be using when interacting with the birds. During keeper talk sessions, flocks, blank, macaws, penguins, and songbirds will be featured while the keepers share more about the birds. Okay. Flocks of macaws, penguins, and songbirds. After a day of walking around the park, visitors can take a rest and satisfy their hunger at blank of the 7 food and beverage outlets. Okay? Blank of the 7 food and beverage outlets over here. Does it matter which outlet they go to? Is there one special outlet they could go to? No, right? You can use, among all of them, you can use any of the 7 food and beverage outlets. You can choose from buffet-style restaurants, fast food chains, or even sandwich bars. Okay, any questions for our grammar close passage? Okay, so that's it for our grammar close passage for now. If you have any questions along the way, or if you have any comments you'd like to leave in the chat, please go ahead to do so. I'll do my best to respond to them as soon as I can. Finally, that brings us to our editing passage. Editing passage consists of spelling or grammar mistakes. Okay, this editing passage is quite timely. It talks about artificial intelligence, right? What are some ways we encounter artificial intelligence in our everyday lives? For viewers in the chat over here, what are some ways in which you come across or you use artificial intelligence in your regular lives? Right, some of you might use ChatGPT to do your homework. I hope you don't do that, but if you do use ChatGPT, that's an example of generative artificial intelligence, right? To generate images. Some of you might also decide to might have support devices at home, such as Google Home, Siri on your mobile phones, Alexa if you use Amazon. These are also artificial intelligence user feedback responses, right? So you ask them a question, they can search the internet to give you a response. Okay. So artificial intelligence has been quite a timely topic. It has been gained quite a lot of importance over the past few decades. The image of artificial intelligence normally comes across as robots that are self-functioning, that are able to carry out their own activities without human intervention or instruction. Okay. However, in the recent years, we have seen a steadier, less revelatory idea of artificial intelligence starting to infiltrate our lives, right, to help enhance some of our daily lives. For example, if you have AI-powered household devices like AI-powered fridges or AI-powered washing machines, right, it's able to gauge how heavy your washing machine load is and then give you a certain specification or a certain washing setting that you should be using. Okay, so artificial intelligence has revolutionized technology and how it affects every sphere of our lives. Okay, let's take a look in this passage to see or understand what is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can be a difficult concept for adults to fully understand, so explaining it to children is even harder. Even so, this explains is necessary since they are more likely to be exposed at it every day. So this explains over here, explains is the wrong word form. You should be using a noun of explains. And what is the noun of explains here? Okay. For viewers who have just joined in, you can join in for our first question. What is the noun of explain? Okay. Explain is the verb, right? What is the noun? The noun of explains is explanation. Okay, let me spell it out in full. Explanation. Take note, in the middle, there's no I. Alright? Explanation. It's a word form error here. Even so, this explanation is necessary since they are more likely to be exposed at it every day. To be exposed, what preposition you should use over here? The collocation is to be exposed to it every day. Today, many young children have gadgets with smart functions. Okay, gadgets, how do you spell gadgets over here? The spelling given to you might be a bit misleading in a mistake, but the proper spelling of gadgets is actually quite unexpected if you don't come across the word. It starts off with G, A, D. No issues here. G, A, D, G, E, T, S. So we see a unique phenomenon happening over here where you have the same letter, G, pronounced in two different ways in the same word. You have the hard G, the guttural sound, G for gadgets, and the soft J for the jits in the middle. Okay? Gadgets. Meaning chatbots like ChatGPT and other AI-generated software are easy accessible to children. Okay? So easy, again, it's in the wrong word form. You need it in the form of an adjective. Okay? An adverb. So what is the adverb of easy? It is easily. Easily accessible because you're describing the ease of accessing these AI-generated software. It is thus important for children to be briefed about internet safety before interacting with AI. An example of AI in practice that will help them gain a better understanding of the technology. Technology over here, it's spelled T-E-C-H N-O-L-O-G-Y, is the voice assistant Siri in iPhones. Children probably have many questions about AI, so give them just for examples they are familiar with. Over here, this is the wrong verb tense. It should not be in the present tense, it should be in the continuous tense, giving them, right? Because you're using it as a noun. Giving them just a few examples that they are familiar. Familiar is spelled wrongly, it's just a single M in the middle with an L-I-A-R at the back. Familiar with can help stimulate their curiosity. Okay. Curiosity ends off with a Y. Okay. There are very few words in the English language that end off with an I over here, so just be mindful of the spelling. The most vital part of this issue, however, is keeping vulnerable children safe online. Vulnerable, that means those that are sick, weak, those that are defenseless. Keeping them safe online, those who are defenseless. So you have vulnerable, V-U-L-N-E-R-A-B-L-E, vulnerable children safe online. Online safety has always been, you need it in a present perfect tense, not a past perfect tense, right? Present perfect tense. Online safety has always been a big concern. One way to keep children safe is to use parental controls and password protection. Parents need to have regular conversations about online safety, don't you agree? Okay, so conversations over here is spelled with a C. To converse is to speak. Conversations. Okay. Any questions? Alright, if not, we've come to the end of our editing passage as well as the practice paper for our noontime session. But don't worry, stick around. After the break, we'll be going through a second set of practice papers from a different school at 2:30. Alright, so stay tuned. For now, you can take a short break, refresh yourself, catch up with some work, or to go to have lunch. Okay. I'll see everyone back here at 2:30 as we'll continue with the second set of practice papers. Alright, I'll see you all back then. Bye bye. Okay, right, if you have a question, the one that we just went through for today was the Ai Tong end of year from 2023. Alright, so if you need to refer to this or need to find it online or if you want to practice it by yourself, feel free to do so using this paper as a reference. Alright, so that's it for the session right now. We'll see you all for our afternoon session later this afternoon at 2:30. Alright, so stay tuned. We'll be back at 2:30 for a second set of practice papers. Bye.